Most of us see Woolworths as the place we buy groceries, but its actual role in Australia is that of a $40 billion empire. Its influence, built over a century, extends far beyond the checkout line. It dictates what our farmers grow, determines the fate of local brands, and is now moving into the prescription business. They've perfected the wholesome, fresh food people image, but behind it lies a corporate machine with some shocking secrets. Today, we're going behind the shelves to uncover the dark truths of the Woolies empire. From the biggest wage theft scandal in Australian history to the high-stakes game it plays with Australia's food supply. So, buckle up, because your weekly shop is about to get a whole lot more interesting. To understand how a company could accumulate this much power, we need to rewind the clock to Sydney in 1924, where a new store called the Woolworths Stupendous Bargain Basement first opened its doors. It was a simple, scrappy concept for its time, promising everyday Australians access to goods at rock-bottom prices. The company's path to the top was a turbulent one, marked by a series of strategic wars that defined the industry. Woolworths skillfully dominated the rise of the modern supermarket in the 1960s, but it was the ensuing brutal supermarket wars with its arch rival Coles that truly cemented its power. While shoppers saw a battle fought over the price of milk and bread, the true prize for corporations was a high-stakes war for territory. Both giants battled fiercely for prime real estate, strategically locking up the best corner locations in every new suburb and shopping centre, effectively creating retail fortresses that smaller competitors couldn't penetrate. Their strategy was relentless. They would merge with smaller players, acquire any promising rivals, and ruthlessly outmaneuver anyone who dared to stand in their way. By the turn of the millennium, Woolies had evolved from a simple grocer into a sprawling retail juggernaut. If you wanted discounted home goods, you were guided to their Big W stores. If you needed a bottle of wine, you were funneled into their liquor chains, Dan Murphy's or BWS. They even owned a massive network of pubs and hotels, ensuring they captured Australian spending at every turn. By this point, the familiar green logo had evolved far beyond a simple brand, transforming into the pervasive symbol of a corporate entity whose presence in everyday life was utterly unavoidable. This extraordinary level of dominance achieved total market saturation on a scale that was entirely unprecedented in Australian history. The very definition of business success seemed inadequate to describe a company that was no longer just a participant in the market, but had become the market itself for millions of people. Woolworths has invested a lot of money in building a brand that feels wholesome. They're the fresh food people, a name synonymous with community, family, and sponsoring the local kids' soccer team on a Saturday morning. But behind this meticulously crafted facade, a significant portion of the company's profit was being generated by a much grimier, ethically charged business, Pokies. For years, through its vast ownership of pubs and hotels, Woolworths quietly operated as one of the largest pokie empires in the entire country, with thousands of machines spinning 24/7. While it was a massive and reliable earner, it created a glaring hypocrisy that was becoming a PR disaster waiting to happen. How can you be the face of family health on one hand while being one of the biggest beneficiaries of problem gambling on the other? By the late 2010s, the public criticism was reaching a fever pitch. More importantly for the boardroom, a new force was at play: ethical investing. Major investment funds, guided by environmental and social governance principles, were getting nervous about having their money tied up in gambling. With their reputation and share price under threat, Woolworths executed a masterful piece of corporate sleight of hand in 2021. They announced they were spinning off their entire, highly profitable liquor and gaming division into a brand new, publicly listed company. This new entity, the Endeavour Group, would take with it all the Dan Murphy's and BWS stores, the entire network of pubs, and, of course, those thousands of reputation-damaging poker machines. Overnight, Woolworths scrubbed its hands clean. The headlines read that Woolies had exited the gambling business. They could now present themselves as a pure, focused retailer dedicated to putting food on your table. But when they spun off the Endeavour Group, Woolworths kept a significant 14.6% ownership stake, making them the largest single shareholder by a huge margin. For the next 3 years, they played the perfect double game. They reaped all the PR benefits of looking clean by officially exiting the gambling business while still pocketing a huge slice of the profits from the very operations they publicly dumped. They successfully outsourced their reputational damage while keeping a pipeline to the cash. Then, once the image laundering was complete, they cashed out. After selling a portion in early 2024, they sold their entire remaining stake in September 2024, completely severing the financial ties for a final payout of hundreds of millions. The staggering $11.89 billion in revenue the Endeavour Group posted in 2024 highlights the final lucrative chapter of Woolworths' involvement, as they remained a key beneficiary right up to the moment they cashed in their last chip. But some scandals are too damaging to be spun away by a PR team, and this next one sent genuine shockwaves across Australia. In 2020, after an internal review, the company came forward to announce what they initially framed as a minor payroll error. But the reality behind that corporate jargon was a systemic failure that saw the company underpay over 5,700 of its own salaried employees. The final cost of this error was a jaw-dropping amount of around $300 million. That staggering sum earned the scandal a grim title: the single largest case of corporate wage theft in Australian history at the time. The victims of the systemic underpayment were the very backbone of the company's stores, like the managers who open the stores before dawn and lock up long after closing, and the ones who carry the full responsibility for running multi-million-dollar departments. In exchange for that dedication, they were paid a fixed salary with the expectation it would cover all their hours. But it didn't. They logged countless hours of unpaid overtime that the company's payroll system seemed deliberately engineered to ignore. To put $300 million in perspective, that's more than the entire annual profit of many successful Australian companies. It's a colossal sum of money that should have been in the pockets of thousands of working families paying for mortgages, school fees, and groceries. So, what was the real consequence for the executives overseeing this? While the company issued carefully worded apologies and promised to pay the money back, the C-suite remained remarkably insulated. Yes, under immense public pressure, the CEO and chairman gave up their short-term bonuses for 2020, but their multi-million-dollar salaries and long-term incentives continued. And to be clear, there were no bonus clawbacks and no personal financial penalties for those in charge. The legal action was aimed squarely at Woolworths, the corporation. This resulted in court-ordered undertakings and financial penalties for the company, leaving the architect of the system personally untouched. The scandal left a permanent stain on the company's record, but not, it seems, on the wallets of its leaders. If you think the pressure on staff was intense, just imagine you're a small, family-owned business that makes the best pasta sauce in the country. You've poured your life into it. Your dream is to get on the shelves of a major supermarket. When you finally get that contract from Woolies, it feels like winning the lottery. But that dream can quickly turn into a nightmare. This is where the sheer brute force of the Woolworths empire really comes into play. Time and time again, Woolworths has been accused of using strong-arm tactics against its suppliers. It's a world most shoppers never see, starting with fees like shelf space fees, just for the privilege of being stocked. But it gets worse. Suppliers have spoken out about the immense pressure to cut their prices. Woolworths buyers will demand impossible targets, and if you can't meet them, you risk being replaced by a cheap import or the supermarket's own home brand product. This pressure is immense for any supplier. It's felt most acutely at the very start of the food chain, the Australian farm. This is where Woolworths' campaigns celebrating its support for Aussie farmers clash with the grim reality. For years, reports have documented the pressure on agricultural suppliers who are forced into contracts with razor-thin margins and made to bear all the risk of weather and bad harvests. The most infamous example was the $1 per litre milk war that raged for years. It was promoted as a huge win for customers, but it was a devastating blow to the dairy industry, forcing many small, multi-generational dairy farmers out of business. It taught farmers a brutal lesson. Woolworths could and would devalue their product overnight for a marketing headline. When you and your main rival control over 2/3 of the entire grocery market, the threat of being delisted from your shelves becomes a potential death sentence for a small business. Woolworths defends these ruthless tactics with corporate buzzwords like efficiency and delivering value for customers, but for the suppliers on the receiving end, it feels a lot more like coercion. The result is a marketplace where innovation is stifled, smaller Australian brands are squeezed off the shelves, and even more power is consolidated in the hands of the two giants. The final kicker is that the financial pressure they apply to suppliers has to go somewhere. That squeezed margin is either absorbed by the struggling business, cut from the quality of the ingredients, or most often passed directly onto you at the checkout. This entire system creates the perfect illusion of choice for shoppers. The shelves look full, but behind the facade is a brutal battlefield carefully managed to ensure only the biggest players survive. Dark stores. Ever heard of them? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, and in a way, it is. These are the secret weapon in Woolworths' booming online delivery service. From the outside, a dark store looks like a regular supermarket, but if you tried to walk in, you'd be turned away. Inside, it's a warehouse optimized for one thing and one thing only: speed. Workers, known as personal shoppers, race through the aisles with high-tech trolleys, fulfilling hundreds of online orders a day. It's the Amazon warehouse model applied to your groceries. Woolworths has been rapidly rolling out these facilities since 2023 to keep up with the insatiable demand for e-commerce. It's incredibly efficient. It's how they can promise delivery relatively quickly. But as online shopping continues to explode and more of our groceries are fulfilled from these faceless automated warehouses, what happens to the traditional neighborhood corner store? What happens to the thousands of jobs they provide, the role they play as community hubs, and the simple human interaction of shopping? Woolworths frames dark stores as a win for customer value and convenience, but for many, they're a chilling glimpse into a future where efficiency trumps humanity and the fresh food people are replaced by algorithms and stopwatches. We've talked about the duopoly of Coles and Woolies quite a bit by now, but we've only scratched the surface of just how entrenched these two behemoths are. They control a whopping 65% of the market share in Australia, which is stacks ahead of the two largest UK grocery chains, being Tesco and Sainsbury's at just 43%, while in the US, the market share is spread out among Walmart, Costco, Kroger's, Publix, and more. What does all this mean for you? It means you're living with the illusion of competition. You might see them slash the price of roast chicken or milk, creating a noisy price war, but behind the scenes, this duopoly gives them an incredible amount of power to control prices across the board. In 2024, as Australians were, and still are, grappling with a severe cost of living crisis, both supermarket giants came under intense fire. A Senate inquiry was launched to investigate whether they were using their market power to keep prices artificially high and engage in unfair practices. Both Woolies and Coles are now facing potential court action in 2026 over allegations of misleading and deceptive pricing tactics. It's the ultimate problem with a duopoly. When there's only two giants in the playground, they don't have to play fair. They just have to play the game better than one another. In the age of the conscious consumer, every major corporation wants to be seen as green, ethical, and sustainable. And Woolworths has poured millions into crafting this exact image. You've seen it, the big push on reusable bags, the solar panels being installed on store roofs, the glossy corporate responsibility reports talking about reducing food waste and ethical sourcing. These are all good things on paper, but critics are increasingly pointing to a gap between the shiny green branding and the reality of their business operations. This is a practice known as greenwashing, spending more time and money on marketing yourself as environmentally friendly than on actually minimizing your environmental impact. Woolworths will proudly announce a new recycling program in its stores, but at the same time, its business model relies on a massive carbon-intensive global supply chain and a logistics network of thousands of diesel trucks crisscrossing the country every single day. They'll talk about reducing plastic in their home brand products while simultaneously continuing to use their market power in ways that can make it harder for small-scale, local, sustainable producers to even get on the shelf. So, here we are. After 100 years, Woolworths stands as an undisputed titan of Australian retail. It's a logistical marvel, a master of marketing, and a company used and trusted by millions of us every single week. It provides jobs, it pays taxes, and yes, it makes getting dinner on the table incredibly convenient. But that convenience comes with a hidden price tag, a cost that isn't printed on your receipt. It's a cost paid by underpaid workers, a cost paid by farmers and small businesses who can't compete with the giants' immense power. It's a cost paid by us, the consumer, in the form of less choice and the erosion of genuine competition. When one company has this much influence over what we eat, how much we pay for it, how it's grown, and even where we get our medicine, it stops just being a retailer. It becomes a system of control, a shadow monopoly that operates in plain sight. So maybe the next time you're walking down those familiar aisles, it's worth asking a different set of questions. Not just how cheap is this, but who paid the price for it to be this cheap? Because in the end, the dark truth behind the Woolworths empire is that its greatest product isn't the fresh food on its shelves, it's power. But what do you think? Is the convenience offered by a supermarket giant like Woolies worth the cost to suppliers, staff, and local businesses? Or is their dominance a problem that needs fixing? Drop your thoughts, experiences, or any stories you have about the grocery store duopoly in the comments section below. We'd love to hear what you think, and we read every comment. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching and stay curious.